goes totally hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really very helpful if you talk about local and fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also I do have one more question.
Sure.
When you talk about sensory gardens, I have no idea what's it about.
So like your five senses, so like touch, feel, smell, taste. So we want to bring that over to Parma Park for our ACEs, our PAGE program, our PAX programs, so that they have the ability to go out in that garden and really get a full immersive experience. Feeling different things, planting different, say herbs, like say they never had mint before, so you plant it and then you get to taste it. And you also, there's like lamb's ear, where it's a really fuzzy plant, and that's a good one for a sensory garden. So things like that. There'll also be like bells and whistles and everything that you can think of that relates to like the five senses. No problem.
Is this program already being introduced to all the elementary schools?
What program?
The Feed for Future case or something like
Yes.
that?
So Feed Our Future is a sector of the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, and they are all about local foods and the movement for that in Ohio. And we partner with them on a lot of things. They were just out at Green Valley today with our farm to school coordinator, taste testing hydroponic lettuce. And we coordinate it so that each elementary school gets one taste test a month. And this year it's been a little rocky, but we have been getting back into it, and we're doing hydroponic lettuce right now. But that is at all of our elementary schools, yes.
That is going to Ridgebrook Elementary
Yeah.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so that is introduced in that school now. I'm not sure of that.
I think the last one we did at Ridgebrook might have been apples, and it might have been, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That was adorable.
It might have. I can put it here. I'll show you. Well, so this was.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
it was not apples then.
Well, this was apples, but this was we have John Muir, Pleasant Valley, Parma Park, and I don't know what other school that is, but I know we have done Ridgebrook a few times this year.
It was lettuce, he's saying.
Say that again?
It was lettuce, not apples. That's what he's saying.
Was it beans?
Lettuce, he said.
Oh, lettuce. Thought he said lentils. We did do beans, so that's why I asked that. Yeah, we do black beans. It really just depends on what is on our calendar. But whatever we do, we try to tie it into whatever is on the fruit and vegetable bar that month. So in September, we're tying in our Sun Golds. So we'll have Sun Golds on the salad bar. We'll taste test Sun Golds. And then we'll just push tomatoes that whole month. And then on October, we do apples. And then we go so on and so forth. But beets are one of my favorite because you don't think that the kids are going to like them, but they do. They love them. Did you like them? No? Did you try it? You did? See that? And that's the thing. Like these are fun experiences for kids to get to try new things. And they might say, "Oh, I don't like that." But I say, "Well, you never know. You never know." And then typically they'll like it. So that's the beauty of what we do. That's the beauty of farm to school. Sure.
Actually, we are vegetarians, right?
Yeah.
Core vegetarians, like me and my kids.
Mhm.
So, like, and at times when I eat out, I'm quite skeptical about it, like how things are being done when it comes to non-vegetarian food and vegetarian
Mhm.
food. So, can you tell me, like, what steps are taken to keep it all separately when it comes to non-vegetarian food and vegetarian food?
When it comes to that, so I'm thinking, automatically I think of like food safety and how we use different utensils, different cutting boards, different everything for different food products. So say peanut allergies. And now I know this isn't talking about vegetarian, but this is an example of the lengths that we go to make sure there's no cross-contamination. For peanut allergies, we make sure that we do a whole separate sink and washing when we're washing peanut butter items, and then we drain the sink, we wash the sink. We actually wash peanut butter items last. So that way we're not cross-contaminating anything. And we do similar things with our cutting boards. We have different colors for everything. We follow all the food safety practices. And it's funny you mentioned vegetarian items because I actually just tried a few different items the other day with a few different vendors, and I'm looking at some more meatless options for the menu next year. So we're really looking forward to doing that.
So this was our major concern. That's why we didn't put into the school
Oh, okay.
Breakfast and lunch. That's why I wanted to come in and just have questions.
Yeah, of course. You can even go on our menus, to My School menus, and you'll be able to filter out vegetarian options and all of the major allergens and anything that you don't want your students eating. You can see if it's in that food product. And the menu will tell you right away, like, hey, this has wheat, or hey, this has dairy, or these are all your vegetarian options, and it'll filter the whole menu for you so you can see what your students can eat and what they can't.
That could be done, but the major concern was how you separate it. So
Yes.
how you answer it,
Yes.
I am little bit red.
Yes, we don't cross-contaminate or mix meat and meatless options. Okay?
I have a question. I feel like we're really ahead of the curve. I mean, this was certainly not anything that we ever even contemplated in the last district that I was part of. I know you're a modest person, but I mean, is anybody else doing this? This is pretty futuristic in my estimation.
In Ohio, yes, it's becoming a much bigger thing. I was just at a summer summit yesterday in Columbus, and the whole conversation, actually the USDA was even there, and the whole conversation was centered around farm to summer and how more people can incorporate local foods into their summer meal programs. And I know that, but this is always a conversation too when I'm at sessions for like Ohio schools when it comes to farm to school. It's something that we at Parma advocate for heavily. Like any chance I get to speak at anything and tell people about what we do here, I do it because it really does make a difference. It leads to healthier outcomes for our students, healthier lives. That is the number one goal. I would say we're ahead of the curve here at Parma City Schools, but farm to school is making headway in Ohio, and that's really exciting. And yeah, that would be my main.
Won't be leaving us for some state job or something.
No, I could never leave.
All right, can we give Ms. Gladish a round of applause there? That was
Thank you.
pretty awesome. Thank you. Now I have the boring part, right? You know that'll fix it. Oh, we're back live now. We should have thrown that on the floor.
I forgot this was on. There you go.
How about my PowerPoint?
You just hit the next button a couple times.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So we always introduce all of our meetings with these three goals, and I know we've already had a good chunk of our meeting, but Ms. Gladish was our guest star, so we wanted to make sure we got her up. We always focus on student achievement. That's our number one goal. It's the number one goal, really, of any school district that exists. You should really be about making sure your kids learn. Second is improving transparency throughout our communities. These meetings are one of the ways we do that. Again, as I said before, we've been doing town hall meetings since the summer of 2018. We've had upwards of 50, 60 people at a town hall meeting. We've had meetings like tonight. We've had meetings where no one shows up. But we're going to continue to come, and we're going to continue to answer questions, because sometimes if you have a controversial issue, people think, oh, well, now you're going to talk to us. We're always going to be available. We want to connect with, whether it's 5 people or 7 people or 150 people. We want to connect with you. These are your schools. They belong to you, and we want you to feel that connection. And finally is practicing fiscal responsibility. So when we do these town halls, we spend some time looking at just some highlights of how we're meeting all 3 of these. This isn't a full-blown State of the Schools address, but we try to have some highlights within each one. First is for improving student achievement, we want to recognize the accomplishment of Densler Elementary. Densler is one of our 6 elementary schools. We consolidated last year. We went from 8 to 6. And Densler recently was recognized as a national ESEA distinguished school, one of 2 in Ohio. That's an extremely impressive group to be a part of when you're one of 2. ESEA stands for Elementary and Secondary Education Act, just in case you're wondering what type of acronym that might be. Their specific recognition was for closing the achievement gap between groups of students. So if you look at our state report card, there's expectations that if one group is at 100%, which nobody is, they want all groups to be at 100%. They've set different standards for different subgroups. For instance, students with disabilities is a subgroup. Students with socioeconomic disadvantage is a subgroup. So they want those subgroups to be really making ground toward that 100% goal for all students. And the criteria, you have to have a poverty rate of at least 35% and then high academic achievement. So Densler is being recognized at a statewide conference, actually a national conference this week, later this school year, a statewide conference. And we're very excited about Densler. Thank you to Mrs. Dzernak and really just a very impressive staff. It's a great environment. If you haven't been to Densler, it's definitely a strong school. We also want to highlight PAGE. PAGE is our Parma Academy of Gifted Enrichment. And we started that this year. We actually have about 37 students this year. Might be a little high, might be 33. Somewhere in there, somewhere in the 30s. Between the actual 3rd and 4th grade. Next year we are expanding to 5th grade. This is housed at Parma Park. You have to meet criteria to be a part of PAGE. And again, PAGE is the acronym for Parma Academy of Gifted Enrichment. And you see some of our highlights here. It is an all-day, every subject, lunch and recess. It's a self-contained program. So we serve our gifted students. We serve them throughout our district. And they'll actually have what are called WEPs, written educational plans. And in a lot of ways, our students meet with a teacher for a period of time as a pull-out model, or we send gifted teachers in. We also have some of our staff that is just certified. They've done hours, professional development hours in gifted. So every student who's gifted is attaining some type of service. But this is really for families who have decided we want to be part of something different. We want to be part of really a gifted school that features only our students in a learning environment tailored to them. We use the integrated curriculum model, or ICM. Try to do a lot of inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning means students start with a question, and from there they go into some type of unit of study. That's a project-based way to look at learning and advancing student knowledge. Daily advanced learning opportunities, again, this is all day, every day. This isn't, 2 days a week, the gifted intervention specialist is coming. Not that that's a bad model, and some families, continue to want that, and we're proud of that model and the work that they do as well, but this is a different concept. Integrated content across the disciplines, so again, you're always trying to have, a project that includes all of your disciplines. So one project where students are going to write, they're going to do some math, they're looking at social studies, they're looking at science, really all in one area. Accelerated content, and then again, higher order thinking is always a really important skill that we're trying to emphasize. So again, PAGE we're highlighting today because it is opening for 5th grade. That's an expansion. We were excited to open it this year. We've had some feedback from families. It's been very positive. And as a result, we want to keep their students, we want to keep their families, and we will have the 5th grade available next year for PAGE. From a practicing fiscal responsibility piece, this is all about the dollars. This is all about making sure that we have a really strong sense of trying to maximize tax dollars so that when we do have to come back, and every now and again districts have to come back and ask for new money, you understand that we've been as tight with our finances as possible. And one development that we've really keyed in on over the last few years, it opened in 2020 actually, is ACES. ACES is our school for students with autism. It started out at Parma Senior High. It now occupies a part of Parma Park. ACES is an acronym that stands for Accept, Champion, Educate, and Support. Accept, Champion, Educate, and Support. And we opened ACES for a couple reasons. First, we wanted to make sure that we keep those students in our district. We think that we have really what we call a moral imperative to serve their needs here, not send them to some school outside the district. Before we operated ACES, before we had this as an option inside our district, these are students that these needs could not be met in our regular education classrooms or even schools. We would have to outplace them outside of the district. ACES allows us to educate them inside the district. Now, what you may not realize is tuition to these schools that we're talking about that we used to have to send students to is at least, and we went conservative here because most of them are actually a little bit higher, but it's at least $100,000 per student. So what we did, because again, a second reason we opened this was financial responsibility. We're always operating with that fiscal lens, really attuned to that. So what we looked at was how much we would have spent on outside tuition, how much we spent instead when we said we're going to educate students in our own schools, in our own classrooms with our own teachers, and what was the savings. So what you look at is we started ACES with 8 students, and that's how you get to 800,000. We're very proud that ACES has been a successful program that we've grown from 8 to 16 to 24. This year we have 27 students in ACES. And it really continues to really have an upward trend in terms of enrollment. So when you look at all of that, and this year would be the biggest savings because we're at 2.7 million. The biggest savings is 1.7 million. Just this year we're saving by keeping these students in the district. It's a dual benefit. The first benefit is that we keep them. They're ours. They're Parma City Schools students, and we want that for their families. We want to feel that connection. But the second is $4.2 million in savings since we've opened that. So that's just one example of how we try to be fiscally responsible. Folks have also asked, we've begun to see this. The federal government pumped a lot of money into a lot of different things during COVID. And they did it to keep the economy afloat. And whether you're pro that or anti that, we certainly benefited from that. We had awards of approximately $32 million in Esser funding. Esser stands for Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief Act. That was Esser, and that was part of the ARPA, the American Recovery Plan. So what we've done, and this is why I think people think, what'd you do with all that money? For the most part, about 2/3 of that, we put right back into the general fund so that we wouldn't have to come back to people and say, we need more money in terms of an operating levy. So I really think it's important that people understand that we supplanted. And supplanted means instead of using your general fund, which are your Parma property tax dollars, we used our Esser funds for that. And we were able to. And we did that for things like intervention specialists, deans of students, counselors, our staff. Those are folks in our schools on a daily basis that we were really eligible to spend money from the federal government instead of Parma tax dollars. And we did that to a tune of $21.6 million. What else did we spend Esser money for? And again, there were different requirements of how you had to spend it. You had to spend some on athletics or extracurricular opportunities. We put money into our lighting and our turf at Byers Field. That's a community centerpiece, really. It's not just for our football and our soccer teams. We do things like an egg hunt there and Byers Field movie nights. So we had been well past the life expectancy, both for lighting and for turf. So we rejuvenated that. We also put money into our curriculum. We had textbooks, believe it or not, that were from the 1970s. It was absolutely time to really replenish and refresh our textbook inventory. And we spent a lot of money, much of it from Esser, on that need. The other piece, $6 million, went to COVID expenses or the remediation of the effects of the pandemic. We didn't charge any student fees for 3 years. Student fees, for right now, like you guys are looking, it's $45. Yep, you pay $45. Every elementary, every middle school student pays $45. High school is $10, and then more if you're in some type of course. We eliminated student fees for 3 years. We said, we know families are struggling right now. Let's take that out of our own general fund, and that was no expense to families. We also spent our money on digital tools, Chromebooks, for instance. We bought using Esser funds. So when people say, well, you had all this money, $32 million from the federal government, you blew it. We see that from time to time on Facebook, that type of allegation. The reality is 21 million of that went right back into the general fund. We originally projected a deficit in 2022, I think. I'll have to look back at my notes, but we now have put that deficit out until 2027. And a lot of that is trimming your spending, doing things like we showed you with ACES. It's also conservative revenue projections, which we do a good job of. We're always going to try to underpromise and overdeliver, but it's also the Esser money. We have to say a thank you to the federal government for that as well. Increasing transparency. There we go. Thought it wasn't coming up. So just some things, just some highlights again. How do we want to connect to you? How do we want to make sure that you understand that you're a part of our district, whether you have students in a district, whether you don't? One is that we have a new written communication, PCSD Press, which comes out at least once a month. We've already done 2 since we began in January, so we've been committed to getting these out. You can email Megan Cooney, who's a community relations specialist for us. That's the email there, and she'd be happy to put you on the mail list. All parents get this already, so parents don't need this, but community members who just want to stay in touch, make sure you get your email to Megan, and we will add you to our email list. We We have a family movie coming up actually this weekend at Normandy. We will show Monsters, Inc., which is pretty popular with the children. February 11th, that's again Sunday at 2 o'clock p.m. We've done movie nights in the summer, and they've been very successful. We're excited to do movie nights this winter as well. So we're going to try this and see if we get people that are interested. Strategic planning. We want your input on how we should really view the next 3 to 5 years of sort of the programming and just sort of how we approach our decisions from an academic, from a financial, from a facility standpoint. The community input session is actually February 27th, 6 o'clock p.m. right here actually. And we're actually using an outside consultant to do that. We do that not because we're lazy, but because sometimes it's helpful to have an outside group come in and say, okay, Charlie's going to leave the room, the school board's going to leave the room, speak. And that sort of kind of lessens the angst sometimes, and people feel more comfortable just sharing openly. So we'll have that strategic planning session again here. Very happy to get anybody's input. We'll also have a survey that we will launch soon, so look for that on your social media or email. Pierogi dinner is always a great Parma night, March 1st, 3:30. All of our schools have tickets, so if you can go to any school and get tickets, offices have them, and we would love to see a great crowd for our pierogi dinner. And then our egg hunt. This has been a great event at Parma, Parma Byers Field, and we will have that on March 23rd at 10 o'clock. So just some ways that we are trying to connect to you. We know that you are tax-paying citizens. You deserve to reap benefits from our school district, whether or not you decide to send your kids here. We want you to feel that we are a pillar of the community, and we're proud of the different events that we offer. Any questions in the room on any of those things, or anything that is just on your mind?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that include the transportation? Because I know that we were sending kids pretty far for a while.
Yeah, that's a great question, and yes, it actually does. Actually, you know what, Allison, we probably didn't. No, we just looked at tuition savings, so that's a good point. That's a good point. Because we used to, yeah, you're right. I mean, they could be going to any number of different places. Good point. So it might be a little higher than the 4.6. Yeah, that's a really good point. We didn't do that specific. Other questions or comments? Or you see anything on YouTube? Nothing? All right, well, thank you for coming out. I have to tell you that sometimes we see no one. And so it's great to look out and see some folks. And Sue, I don't know if you want to say hello. And Sue is a candidate for office here.
Yes, I'm Sue Richko, and I serve on Parma Heights City Council, but I'm running for state senate, District 24, which definitely covers Parma City School District.
Sue's been a great partner of ours. She really has been involved and really wants to know and be in our schools, and we appreciate her support and your attendance tonight.
Well, and it's great to work and partner with someone like Dr. Smialek and his experience and wisdom.
Thank you. All right, so we'll wrap up. Thank you all for coming, and thank you if you're watching us at home. If you watch us later, that's great too. If you have questions, you can always email us, smialekc@parmacityschools.org. Have a great night. Good? No.